Has anybody got any questions that are burning on their minds today?
Quick question. Have you had the situation on like a land deal or something when you have the seller carry back a second because you're doing a sale, they have the tax liability for the whole amount, that they come back and say, no, we want to restructure the deal to get more cash out of it for our tax liability?
I haven't had that, but it probably wouldn't bother me, because when they come back and want something, you mean after you get a contract?
Yeah, after you we're part of the contract negotiation.
I love it when I do a contract and they come back and now they want something.
But that hasn't come up in any of the negotiations
Not yet,
so far.
But it wouldn't bother me if it did. Okay, if I give you this, what do I get? You don't give up something without getting something.
Are you using your contract, or do you just use the broker?
I don't have a contract.
You just use theirs?
For a commercial property, you'd be an idiot to use a boilerplate contract. Attorneys have got them in the computer. They manufacture them to the way you need it for this individual deal, and they whip them out in a hurry. I mean, just because you're new to commercial doesn't mean the rest of the world is. And it doesn't take much for them to make up a commercial contract. It's boilerplate with a few paragraphs changed is usually what it is. So, no. You'll notice there's not one in the book. There won't be one in the book. That'll do you more harm than good. I don't want anybody in this room making up their own contract to buy a commercial property. This ain't a house. And there's a lot more involved than a little simple single-family house. Plus, when you buy houses, you don't have anything at risk, do you? Have you figured out by now that is probably not the case with commercial property? Even if you go borrow hard money and you don't write a check, you're still at risk here. So you got to learn to use the professionals to cover your bases. I got to tell you, we got some killer deals working already in this room. Jeez, you guys are good. Bringing in some good stuff. Some of which we've talked about, some of which we haven't and won't, but really, really great deals. I'm impressed. Can't imagine why I didn't do this earlier. Don't know what you don't know. What moron said that? I want you to hear from Sam Kamak this morning, who is the guy responsible for getting me this line of credit that I'm going to close next week. He's got a special program that you folks are going to want to hear about that are in the house business, too. Sam hails from Houston, Texas. He is in the mortgage business, and I think I'm just going to let you tell them about your temp perm plan, or whatever you call that thing. Go for it.
Right. Well, about 4 years ago, we saw a soft spot in the industry, and one of them, and the soft spot being obviously the investor markets. Mortgage people look on the investor market with a jaded eye. We looked on them after a little investigation. It was a lack of better terminology. You had a real need for a specific group of folks. Your guru, Ron, and the rest of the people in your industry were right in their attitude about buying, flipping, and creating great incomes off of people who had houses in distress, foreclosures, and whatever. We saw a little other need, one to have and to hold these homes to build wealth with them. So we developed a program whereby that we, in short, you can acquire houses. We'll do 100% financing up to 80% after repaired value. That means that buying your home, rehabbing your home. By the way, at the first close, you get your earnest money back, as well as your whatever appraisal deposit you may have. We've refined it to this point. We incrementally fund draws, refinance the house, put it on your permanent mortgage package, and you don't have a dime out of your pocket, not one dime. Somewhere during this process, money's got to fall. Well, in this particular case, you can make the money fall, but you don't have to touch your own funds. That's one of the areas that you're restricted as far as growth potential is concerned. In building well, is the fact that once you put money into a home, you got to get it back out of it somehow. Well, in our case, you're using our money.
All right, so let me get this straight. You'll do 80% LTV based on the value, not the purchase price.
That's correct.
And you don't give a rat's behind if we pay less. In fact, you would think less of us if we did pay 80%, wouldn't you?
I would think so.
Yeah, okay. And your objective here is not to get us cashed out of the deal, but to get us into the deal with no money on properties that we may want to keep or even temporarily fund and sell if we choose. How does this loan program apply to our buyers, for example? Would you fund a buyer up to 80%?
A buyer,
If
your
we took
buyers
back a second.
from your property?
Yeah, our buyers.
If they qualify.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course.
You know, obviously, the big Q word's important. Now, this loan program is not for the entire spectrum of the industry. We've identified a certain people, a certain quality of individual, a certain quality of businessman.
So you got to have decent credit.
Pardon me?
You got to have decent credit.
You got to have good credit, and you have to have some liquidity. We don't want your liquidity. I just want to see it. I just want to see the ability for you to pay in case that house sat down on the market for a little too long. And actually, our requirement is not as bad as you may think. The minute you refinance this to a permanent mortgage, you can do an owner finance without violating due on sale. You can do your leasehold, whatever, and then somewhere down the road, if you decide you want to turn that property, we would more likely than not be able to create a scenario where we just refinancing the property out of it would make it easier on your buyer.
All right. Well, what makes this a great loan for us is though that we can go buy a junker, you will fund the junker, you will fund the repairs, and then turn it into a permanent loan when that's done, up to 80% of the value.
That's right, up to 100% of all costs. That's really important. 100% of all costs. If you're buying a house and you get up over 80%, you may, when you get behind the walls, find a little bit of something different, and then you may have some, mold that you weren't anticipating, and we allow for that. But for the most part, if you get into a house more than 80%, it really kind of violates your own rule.
No kidding.
Industry.
I'd have to hurt them if they do that.
However, if you stay in, that's right, and if you stay in that box. Obviously, I mean, you're building wealth at the rate of 20% or $20,000 per $100,000 worth of values.
Well, they're going to build it more. They're going to build it because they're not going to be in the house for 80%. But the key word here is up to 80%.
That's right.
If they're in it for 70%, you're going to loan them 70%. You're not going to let them take cash out of the deal more than what they got in the deal. Is that correct?
No, we won't. However, if there's an overrun, we can allow for that with a mechanics lien, and we will fund that. If there's a cost overrun on the repair.
All right, so this is a deal where you buy the house, you fix the house, you don't have any money in the house, and then you do whatever you want to do with the house.
Well, we require them to keep it on the permanent finance for 6 months.
Or is there a prepayment penalty if they don't?
Yeah.
Okay.
That maintains the integrity of the program with us and our lenders. You know, we've spent years.
You mean your lenders want to make money?
Yeah, imagine that.
Crap.
Well, that gets them past the yield that they require, and we don't have to pay them back. You know, and that's a good thing. We don't like paying back quick pulls.
All right, how do we get a hold of this program?
Well, by next Wednesday, there'll be a button on xlmortgagecorp.com that will say Ron LeGrand. You go to
XL,
EXCEL, mortgagecorp.com. mortgagecorp.com, and you go to Ron LeGrand's button, and that's how you'll get through this program to us. Now, we, in addition to this, obviously, we do, commercial. You know that
Tell us what you can do for us in the world of commercial.
Well, in world commercial, first place, we are not limited to the states, the licensing requirements in states. We are right now licensed with this program in 3 states and growing, by the way. But as far as commercial, from a commercial perspective, we are good. Obviously, worldwide, there's a whole different ballgame there. And what we do is we are a broker, pure and simple, a broker. And what we attempt to do is and we bulldog it till it gets done, and I think he can attest to that.
I can indeed.
Is that there are a lot of Kennedy Foundation funds out there. There are a lot of Kennedy funds and foundations out there. Let's remember that, by the way, because one of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world got nailed by them. There are a lot of those people in this market. Trust me.
So I'm in a good group, huh?
Yeah, you're one of the best. However, it's our job. Incidentally, if you recall, we found another one on a smaller scale during this process.
Yeah, I was having lunch with a feller yesterday, and a lender, and he said since the first of this year alone, he's talked to 20 people who got skinned by Kennedy.
Is that right?
Correct.
Well, let's give Kennedy a hand. He's in the skin business then. Let's go.
Yeah.
He's done well in the skin. But,
Well, yeah. Isn't that cute, Sam? Yeah.
Well, our job is to eliminate the Kennedys and find the true source of the funds to fit the specific need that you all have. You know, loans are like a fingerprint. They're all different. There's no one of them alike. So every one of your loans and every one of your requirements and every one of your qualifications are different. It's up to us to put these loan programs together. You may feel like I'm, your most inquisitive and worst enemy because of some of the things that we ask for. We don't ask for them just to see if we can get them some of this information. But I can tell you something about Mr. LeGrand. He is forthright with the information that we ask for, because he realizes it's what it takes for us to go do our job in his behalf. He is on the ball with it. If his financial statements are not up to date, I call and want an updated financial. It's there within 30 minutes.
Of course, it helps. I got a full-time CFO working for me.
Well, it certainly does. And surely he knows my name personally because we get a lot of information out of him, and we keep him working. However, the point is that's one of the keys, by the way, to let us do our job to minimize your timing on acquiring these funds. Now, the funds that you're acquiring, now we've got to understand Mr. Grand has this no money down theory in his head. Well, he really means it. And the type of loans we take, it takes a little dexterity and a little understanding of how to structure these loans to get him to that point. Well, we got him to that point again on one of the biggest projects he's got in South Texas.
Well, and I'll tell you, to your credit, you make it crystal clear to your lenders right up front that A, I ain't going to take their crap, and B, there's things that I'm not going to do and there's things that I'll do. You're going to discover that it is so hard for most people you deal with in the world of financing to just simply tell it like it is. Here's what I'm not going to do, and make it clear up front. I can't tell you how many loans that I've applied for on this Forney property out here. To get them all excited, yeah, we'll do that. Then when they get to the point, we get way into the process, they automatically, like magic, they discover that I'm actually borrowing more money than I got in the property. And every single time, and that killed about 3-4 loans, and every single time I told them up front, make crystal clear to them in third grade language that I don't have any skin in this game. I ain't putting any skin in this game. If you want skin, this ain't your game. No. Oh, we did. Well, somehow that translation got lost along the way between broker and lender. Sam's a pretty good translator.
Yeah, I understand his language well and what he's trying to accomplish. And by golly, I like it. I like the theory that he's got. And we actually have accomplished took it even a little bit farther and created a line of credit. It's pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For $5.5 million, and who knows how much he's got in it, but it ain't $5.5 million. And which allows him to go and move in other arenas. And by the way, it's not tied specifically to this property. It's a straight line of credit. That's the only collateral he's got. Doesn't mean that he can't go spend it somewhere else, which he's going to probably do, to help enhance you all's situations. But this is what we do in commercial. We look at it, we analyze it, we find a lender. We try to take as much as the bump factor out of it on the front end. That's our job as a broker. We have to, separate the wheat from the chaff, put it in a different way, and I think you all know what it is, but there's more of the chaff than there is the wheat.
So you would consider yourself a bullshit detector.
That's it. That's well put. And then when you get to the right people, I can tell you right now, the information they have has to be stacked properly.
Yep.
You have to present this loan properly, and again, it incidentally cannot, as you alluded to, there can't be any secrets in commercial, guys. First time there's a secret hits the deck, it's over. Bottom line is be forthright. Let us know, hey, we may want to pull some stuff out of a deal. Let us know 100% what the deal is, what you're trying to accomplish, what, if any hair on the deal, let us know. Let us trim it. And then
Any
find
hair on a deal. Let us trim it. I'm writing this one down here, Sam. So I should call you and say, Sam, this is a hairy deal. Give it a haircut. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, I can do that.
But that, I think, is extremely important in commercial. Let us know all the ups and downs of the thing. Let's make an analysis, and if we can make the deal work for you, we'll do it. And, you know, it may not be done overnight. You know, commercial deals, for the most part, are like watching molasses drip. And it's just there. You know it's sweet and it's coming. But you just got to watch it.
Where you get all this crap at? What? Now I'm picturing molasses dripping here. Okay. All right. Any questions for Sam?
Sam, can you give us a ballpark? I know it's going to vary on rate and points. And how many of these can you have going at a time before you start to have a problem?
Well, it's a big ballpark. Again, it depends on the loan. The loan we got for Ron on this specific deal happened to be pretty nice. But from a hard money perspective, you're looking anywhere from 5 points on the interim types, 5 points to and 15, probably 12 to 15 points in interest rate. Some of the loans we've been able to procure are less than that, 4 points, 1.5 points over prime interest, Wall Street prime, which is pretty terrific on a short-term loan. That's on a bridge loan scenario. I heard you all discussing yesterday non-recourse loans. Non-recourse loans are typically 75% loan to value, and they have $1 million minimums. They won't mess with them less than $1 million, and they are typically a little bit higher in interest rate. Because of and you can anticipate that. But they're a good, solid it depends on if you want to carry it on your credit line or not. Now, the prepayment penalty on non-recourse loans, I heard that kicked around yesterday. The prepayment, you have a 2-year lockout, which is the yield side for the lender. There's just nothing can happen with that loan. Then you probably would have a 3-year prepayment penalty. They also have a 5-year because this is a 10-year loan. They have a 5-year situation and by the way, these are assumable. It's a 1 point assumption deal. Well, if you got a deal that you're going to sell, and you got 1 point killing a deal, you ain't making any money on it anyway. You know, that shouldn't be a deal killer. No. You know,
but these loans are actually longer ammos, but a 10-year balloon is what you're saying.
10-year balloon is what they are. The amortization is for the most part is like 25 years. You can get them now actually out to 40 years, but
depends on the type of the loan.
And
you're right. You're right. He's right, guys. The normal amortization on commercial loans is not 30 years; it's 25 years.
Mm-hmm. When you turn them into perm loans, though, you can have a number of them going at the same time.
What we normally do on a situation like this, if you're actually buying this thing and doing a construction, we actually do a mini perm.
Are we back to the single family stuff?
No, he's talking commercial. But
well, I was looking at both.
Which one are you talking about?
Well, make yourself clear, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was unclear on. You're talking two different programs.
All right,
one for residential and one for
commercial. Which one are you asking about?
I guess both. Can you have more than one going on at a time in both cases?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If your credit and credibility and the deal handles itself, no question about it. And one more thing about that non-recourse loan, we normally do a 3-year mini perm, which gets your apartments or your income producing up to what those non-recourse will do, and then refinance it out of there.
Sam, on the commercial loans, can we substitute collateral and move these things around on subsequent deals in order to avoid the lockout and the prepayments penalties?
No.
Okay. You don't know. The answer is he don't know, because you'd have to ask the lender that, and the lender probably go through the same process on your new project that they went on your first project.
It's a separate standalone loan. If I understand what you're saying, if you got a non-recourse loan and that bottles what you're financing, Can you substitute that bottle for something else? No, I can tell you that, because the collateral itself has to stand on its own, and that loan has to stand on its own.
But if the new collateral is as good as the old collateral, all he's trying to do is avoid the prepayment penalty.
That's, again, a lender decision.
I said
you're
that.
right. I
Thank you.
understand what you're saying. Sorry about
Don't
that.
forget whose platform you're on, too.
I defer to the master.
All right. Yes, sir.
On the residential side, will you do mortgages in the trust's name as
Good
opposed
question.
to
No.
the individual name?
No, but how we deal with that, here's the way we deal with that. Because mortgages got to be into a personal guarantee, individual mortgages. But when you do it, you do an assumption deed after you close that loan and put it over into your into your trust.
Just like you would any other loan with any other bank. Take it out of the trust, do the loan, put it back in the trust at the loan. You
That's
put it back
right.
in the trust at the closing.
So that just keeps you from violating the due on sale clause, and you're still
Well, you don't violate due on sale clause putting it back in the trust.
no.
No, you also
No, that's
don't
what I
violate
said.
it
You-
buying it, taking the mortgage in the name of a trust and the note personally. You can't do
Very
that,
few
though.
lenders will let you
Okay.
do that.
No, it has to be
So
personal.
far, I haven't found one. I heard there are some.
Okay.
They
Thank
always
you.
want you to take it out, mainly because they don't have a clue what you're doing. They think you're trying to sneak something on them. And you ought to be in an attorney's office or a title company's office, or especially a bank's back room, when they're talking about this land trust stuff, man. They just don't get it. They are absolutely clueless. And I went in on a conversation like that one time when I was closing a loan on my house. Of course, I had it in land trust. And they were sitting back there. Well, they called us in to sign the paperwork, and we're sitting out in the lobby. And they're back there arguing with their attorney about this land trust because they didn't understand it. And he's trying to explain it to them. They still don't understand it. And I got tired of it. I walked in the back room. I said, guys, let me handle this. Sit down. So I got on the phone with the attorney, and in about 3 minutes, we got it all fixed. And I said, don't worry, I'll tell them what to do. So I turned around and told them what to do. And I said, next time you call me down here, please have your paperwork done. And by the way, when you get this done, you're bringing it to my house next time, which is exactly
Do you
what
mean
they
you
did.
actually had a short fuse with an attorney?
No, actually, the attorney was on the ball.
Was he?
The morons doing all the paperwork, handling multi-millions of dollars worth of transactions, were absolutely clueless.
Remember, you can contact us through xlmortgagecorp.com and go to Ron LeGrand button, and you're in business. Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
sir.
by the way.
All right. All right. Let's get back on page 59. Let's get to presenting an offer. Yesterday we left off with we collect the information. We get the stuff that we want. I gave you a list of stuff that you would need, if you recall, on the due diligence checklist prior to presenting an offer. We do our best to pre-screen the information. Hopefully, after doing the few projects yesterday, you'll understand that I pre-screen from a macro, not from a micro. And frankly, my common sense applied to the deal tells me that if I don't have all of the facts, but I have enough to go ahead and move forward, I'll move forward based on a no way I could lose offer, knowing that I'm not doing anything that can hurt me if I find out later that all the stuff I've got was wrong and incorrect. So I'm going to say it again. If we make an offer on a property and it gets accepted and we put in an earnest money deposit, what are we losing? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Everybody crystal clear on this. Then we go to work and we verify all of our assumptions. Then there's the question that I dealt with a couple times this morning already. Do I have to go look at the property before I make an offer on it? I would strongly suggest that somebody does. Doesn't have to be you. But frankly, I certainly want pictures of the properties. I want to know that somebody I can trust has seen the property and has a good feel for what I'm dealing with. Now, do I always live by that rule? No. Have I made offers on properties that I haven't seen, nor has the person that I'm working with? Yep. But what do I know in the back of my mind? I'm at no risk. In fact, Dale will tell you. He looked at the property, the 108 unit in Michigan. I looked at a picture. Picture didn't look that bad to me. Brick building with boards on the windows. I've seen a couple of them before. Didn't look that bad to me. But man, when I got inside of it and when I really took a look at the area, we had that property under contract. You guys understand that? And we probably spent, 2 months getting it under contract, didn't we, Dale? Yeah. Well, so what? So what? Bet you the seller's a little more motivated now than they were. In fact, we're not the only ones that have been working on that property. Some of you in the room might even been working on it. I've heard a couple of you are familiar with it for sure. Anyway, it's just another deal. It's a due diligence that didn't make it. And that's something else you're going to have to get accustomed to. Some of the deals are going to fall out during the due diligence process, folks. So you got to collect the information that you can get from the broker. Use the checklist I provided for you, or the owner. You've got to get the information and get it clear in your mind how you would go about buying this property. You got to then formulate that offer based on knowing where you're going to get the money from. You know, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what lender you're going to get it from, but you certainly have to know that you're going to go get the money from a lender or through a mortgage broker, and that the loan to value makes enough sense to where you have a really good chance of getting the loan closed. Or that you're going to bring in a partner to go get the money because you don't feel like you're going to get the money no matter what the loan to value ratio is. And there's your, look at your basic requirements on number 2. Will the seller accept some owner financing? If so, what's the least they feel would be acceptable as a down payment? Now, how are you going to get the answer to that question? Ask them. Well, then how come so many people come up to me and I say, they said they'd take owner financing. Well, did you ask them what's the least they wanted down? Well, no. Well, how are you going to get that information? I guess we'll just make it up. We'll just make it up and fire out an offer based on our guess on what they want down. That makes good sense, doesn't it? No. Does it appear you can buy below current market value? Now I understand, and look, I will agree that determining the real market value of some of these commercial properties is a whole heap more difficult than doing it on houses, isn't it? Okay. So what? You just got to do the best you can do based on the type of property you're dealing with. And I understand that sometimes there's a lot of guesswork involved, but it's educated guesswork, isn't it? Yes, it's a swag, but it's an educated swag. Do you see the way to buy without using your money? Will the facts allow you to propose an offer acceptable to you? And I'm going to tell you right now, that alone will kill a great many of the deals that you work on. The seller will not owner finance under any circumstances. And even if they did, their cash requirements are so egregious you couldn't even borrow it on the property if you wanted to. Or they want all cash, and it's way more than you can borrow on a private loan. Deal killer, deal killer, deal killer. What obstacles stand in your way, and can they be removed? Do you have a plan to buy, fix, or develop, and refinance or sell? And what will hinder that plan? How can I lose? What can I do now to fix it? Now here's number 3 is a judgment call. I almost never visit the property before we make an offer on it and get it accepted or denied, but sometimes I have, but only when I have, it's because, I was in the area or close by and I thought it was a good time to do it while I was there instead of making another trip later, because I visit all the properties that we buy sooner or later. Sometimes it's late into the game after the contract's been accepted for quite a while. Sometimes it's early in the game, but I visit them all. A letter of intent are referred to as an LOI. Better get used to that terminology. LOI, letter of intent. Used all over the nation. An LOI is a 1-page document. At least mine are. An LOI is not an agreement. It's not a contract. It's not binding in any way, shape, or form. It simply says this: here is my simple offer. If you agree with this, then let's go to contract. The rest of the stuff will be dealt with in the contract. It's a meeting of the minds put on paper. Buyer signs it, seller signs it, and then one of them go have their attorney draw up a contract. And then you fight over all the stuff that's in the contract, if there's something to fight over. An LOI is normally faxed to the broker or to the seller. You whoop it up and you fax it. It is no big deal. But it is a big deal if your thinker brain mentality mistakes the LOI for a contract. This is not the place to write out every measly little detail that you're that you need. For example, this is not the place to put 3 pages of contingencies. This is not the place to scare the seller off because you look like a pain in the ass to deal with. This is the place for simplicity. Simple offer, easy to understand, easy to absorb, but this is also the place where you to make sure that any deal breaker terms you're asking for get laid out right up front. For example, if you want subordination, if you want the seller to take back a second and allow you to get a first, this is the place to make that clear. This is not the place to keep it a secret where the seller thinks they're getting a first, and you go to contract and they find out getting their second, and they get all pissed off and tell you to shove it. You should have told them that up front. If you want a chunk of the land released, this is the place to simply say you want a chunk of the land released. This is a place to state the terms of the seller carryback financing, not leave it wishy-washy and generic. State the down payment, state the earnest money, state the due diligence requested time and the closing time. There isn't much more that goes into an LOI. Here's what I'll pay. Here's how I'll pay it. Here's a condition or two that I want as part of my offer. Then you submit the LOI and you wait for an answer. Then they whack it up, send it back, you'll fix it, and you send it back again. And you come to a meeting of the minds. Or you don't. Sometimes they don't send them back. Sometimes they say, nope, we're not interested. You go kick the dog and get over it. Sometimes they get back on the phone. You can tell they're really motivated sellers by the way they react to the LOI. And you can tell when you're dealing with the realtors, with the brokers. You can tell when they know they got a motivated seller by the way they react to the LOI. If they're aggressively trying to get it done, not trying to kill it, you're you're heading down the right direction. If they act like they could care less one way or another, and they feel like you're some kind of a slime ball for even presenting them an offer, you're probably not going to buy that house. Just like in-house, the single-family business, right? Right? This LOI is where you really find out how much interest there is on the other side and whether they're going to work with you or not. You see how easy that is compared to going down and getting an attorney to write up a contract, paying them to write up the contract, submit the contract, and then they got to read this 12 pages of stuff before they even get back to you. This is the separator between suspects and prospects right here. And it's one sheet of paper. So you fax it over. And okay, now you got an LOI signed. Getting closer. Look at number 6. And you see the word your before the word attorney? Circle that baby. You have your attorney draw up purchase and sale agreement. And just for the record, no problem if your attorney agrees. You could have a property in Michigan, have a Florida attorney draw a purchase and sale agreement if you want to. I prefer to have a Michigan attorney do it, but I can tell you I've done it both ways. Our Texas attorney here has drawn up purchase and sale agreements for properties all over the country. I'll also tell you that I insist on having a local attorney in every city where I have a property, or at least in every state. But you know what? I want them in the city. I want the attorney to live where the property is, because they will know stuff that an out-of-town attorney will not know about what's going on in the area. Obviously, they're qualified for that state. I want a real estate attorney. And here's the responsibility of the attorney. We hire the engineer, we hire the appraiser, or we let the engineer hire the appraiser if they feel like if they want to. Because when you got a project in a city, when you hire one of these guys, they all have their own clique. I like to let the people I work with pick the people they work with to make their job easier, because they're all in the same clique. especially in these small towns. Even in the large towns, though, every engineer knows who they want to work with, knows what appraiser they want to work with, and they know what attorney they want to work with. Every attorney knows what engineer and appraiser they like to work with. So instead of me trying to go out here and find all these folks, I find one and I let them find the others. So, I get the LOI accepted. Now I get my attorney to draw up a contract, put into terms. Now I will tell you that every property that we bought or are buying, I won't tell you that we drew up the contract, because that wouldn't be true. Sometimes the seller insists that they draw up the contract. I'm still going to send it to my attorney. If that's what makes them happy, then let's make them happy. I'm not going to fight them on that. Let them go ahead and draw it up. Besides, save me the money, you know. Maybe. Now you got the contract signed. What do you think first thing you do first? What's the next thing you do? What's the next thing you do? Well, after you party. Okay. What's the next thing you do in a single family house? You have the title checked. That is correct. You ought to have your attorney order title insurance. Well, actually, the next thing you do, the next thing you do is get the contract to your attorney. And then let him or her go ahead and run the title search. We've done that. Sometimes we use our own title company. We run the title search and then get the contract to our attorney as well. And we tell them, First American, whoever's running the title. Whenever we put a deposit on a property, we quite often use the local Dallas, Chicago title company to be the escrow company wherever the property is in the United States. Because we have a relationship with them. It works out okay. And there's Chicago titles in every state, so that works out okay. None of this stuff is built, none of this stuff is required. I mean, this is not something you have to do just because I do it. You're going to develop your own path, and that path is going to be the path of least resistance for you. You're going to get your own professionals and let them decide. I mean, the least people you have involved in it, the best, obviously. I didn't pick Chicago title. Rock picked them. Rock just automatically assumed that's where we want to put the deposits because we already been working with them. It was fine. It's as good as any. Personally, I would have probably picked a title company that is in the area where the property is being closed. But it really doesn't matter, does it? All title companies are only holding the deposit until both parties agree to release it. Any title company, for your information, can order title in any city in the country. All they do is call an affiliate and order it for them. We covered that. Any questions on that? That's a pretty important page right there. Let's look at that LOI. I told you what the contents of it. They are listed for you on page 60. Now let's look at some LOIs.
Ron, quick question. If you're dealing with a probate lawyer on a case, how long would you wait to get an answer on the LOI?
Well, I tell you, if I didn't get an answer on the LOI pretty soon, I'd call up and find out why, and if I had trouble, I think I'd have my attorney contact them. You'd be surprised how quickly things move when attorneys contact attorneys.
Thanks.
Do you put an expired time so it
On the
won't
LOI?
shop around? Yeah.
I don't. Because everybody knows it's a crock of crap anyway. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's third grade negotiating tactics that nobody believes. A waste of energy.
They don't use it to shop around to the commercial broker.
Well, they can shop around all they want.
They say, listen, I got this. Can you beat
But
it?
you'll find that's just not what happens. Besides, if they're shopping around, are you going to buy their property anyway? What kind of seller is that? Kind you're not going to buy from. Now, if you don't get a quick reply on an LOI, it's because the broker can't reach the seller normally. That's normally it. And incidentally, if there's a broker involved, do you think the broker is going to intentionally drag? Are you kidding? The broker don't get paid till we get something done. He wants to get it done probably worse than you do. But he's still limited by how the seller is going to react and how fast they can react. And if you're dealing directly with the seller and they don't respond immediately, something's up anyway. Something's wrong. All right, look at the LOI on page 61. There's a blank format, template for you to use. And you look on the next page, you'll see actual LOIs. These are the real deal, guys. The real deal. These are actual LOIs. These ain't samples for the event. So each one of these pertains to a property fact, notice how I wrote these, because I think I wrote most of these. I have to look to see what, yeah, I wrote the first two. Notice the names have been changed to protect the innocent. The property is not on here, but I did leave the state. You see, these first two are in Pennsylvania. It's all you're going to get, because these deals aren't over yet. Let me see, what are these? Yeah, I have not bought either of these deals yet, but they're still in the works. In fact, I've got a counter offer on the one on page 62 that I'm working on now. But look at them. Really, all I do is sit down and try to write out the intended offer in as simple as terms as possible. This is where you do not want to get complicated or act like an English teacher or pretend like you're a Harvard Law School professor. I want them to get this LOI and be able to read it, assuming they got a third grade education. So just take a look at this one. Heritage Financial Group, that's a me, proposes to purchase the above referenced property consisting of approximately 200-acre golf course and a resort for $2 million under the following terms and conditions. Buyer to take over existing financing of $652. Notice the words takeover. Seller to carry a second for $1.3. 50% to be paid within 12 months. Remaining balance to be paid within 24 months. My intentions are buy this resort, which is losing money. Get a little marketing going, which they don't have a clue how to do, because it's only losing money because they don't have enough people coming to it. And it's in a beautiful location and it's a beautiful resort. Got a golf course on it, for crying out loud. Incidentally, golf courses are losers. Golf courses are only there to build houses around. They are. Golf courses, most of them lose money. You do not want to buy a golf course unless you're just an avid golfer and looking for something to keep you busy. You want to buy a golf course only if it has development potential around it, or if you intend to use the golf course for something else. Now look at the offer. Do you see that that's a nothing down offer? Truly a nothing down offer? Seller's getting no money. The second mortgage and the first mortgage add up to $2 million. Close of escrow to take place within 60 days following acceptance. I didn't need a long due diligence process on this free deal. And, I didn't need to worry too much about my $10,000 earnest money deposit. You look on the next paragraph. Will be submitted within 48 hours of acceptance. You see what I did there? I eliminated the due diligence period to strengthen the offer, knowing that I only have $10,000 worst case at risk. It'll cost me more than that to go look at the property, just for the record. A deposit will be submitted within 48 hours and remain as a refundable deposit for, I am doing due diligence. Okay, for 30 days, at which point it will become non-refundable. Said binder will be applied to buyer's closing costs, because it can't be applied to the down payment. There aren't any. Seller's prorated portion of property taxes need not be paid at close of escrow. See, I was thinking like them. I didn't want them to come out of pocket to sell this property. So I said, don't worry about paying the taxes. We'll pay it later. When I pay off the note to you, we'll just deduct it. Trying to make it easy. Mortgage and note held by seller will contain language to release any parcels sold by buyer upon seller receiving 60% of the sales price. Now that's going to have to be strengthened a lot more than that, because I can assure you that the first mortgage has got a release clause in it as well. So what we do is we get the contract, we get the contract signed, we get our mortgage, we get the mortgage information, we look at the release clauses in it, and then we come to terms during the due diligence on how much the seller gets every time we sell off a parcel. We don't need to know all that crap now because we don't have enough information. Buyer to be responsible for all real estate commissions. Me, buyer. Of course, I already asked the realtor if he'll wait till I get paid before he gets paid, and he said yes.
What was the original asking price?
I think the original asking price was $3 million. Now they countered back to me. I should have brought it. They countered at $2.5 million, not $2 million, but that they would refinance it, I think, for $1.8 million. And I take over that debt, and they take back a $700,000 second. And I've already countered back to them, and I forgot what my counter was, and frankly, I haven't heard from this guy yet, so I don't know. Yes?
When you use language like take over, is the seller going to assume that you're taking it subject to, or are they going to assume that you're...
I don't know what they're going to assume.
So you just want to be real ambiguous then?
Yes.
Okay.
There's only one of two things going to happen for me to take over that debt. I'm either going to take it subject to, or we're going to do a land contract device. I would imagine what's going to happen is we're going to do a $2 million land contract. And all of that's irrelevant. And I'll make them a payment big enough to cover the payment on the 652. And you know what? They've countered and they did not even address that yet. Look at the one on the next page. Heritage proposes to purchase the above property consisting of 120 acres, currently farm pasture land, for $1 million under the following terms. A $10,000 deposit submitted immediately and will remain as refundable for a period of 45 days, at which point it will become non-refundable. Boom, boom, boom. Close to take place within 45 days following acceptance. That means it's a 45-day close on this thing, because it's an old lady that owns this property. And buyer's responsible for the real estate commissions. And by the way, they were only asking 1.5 for this thing. And just for the record, this is the property that's got $3 million worth of coal on it. Let me see. $3 million in coal. $1 million purchase price. Sell off coal, have 120 acres free, and get paid to buy it. This took a long time to process this thing mentally. Well, you might be saying, well, why don't you just go ahead and give her the 1.5? Because it's just not the manly thing to do. Besides, I've already recounted this thing at 1.2, as I recall. I don't know where I'm at on this one. I think he's having trouble reaching this lady. Oh, she's out of the country. Is that it? We're at 1.2 now, right? Yeah. Okay, look at that next one. Now I'm using the format that I gave you to use. This is one that was submitted in Whitney Heritage, which is Rock and I's company. One of them. Let's see, purchase price 2.6. Oh, this is that apartment complex. Now look at that. Look at the terms. Clearly stated right in there. I'll secure a 221D or similar loan for $2 million and seller carry back $6 million with no payments or interest for 12 months and then interest-only payments at 6.5 for 36 months to balloon at the end of a 48-month period. Now, you know I read that fast, but if you read it, it's pretty simple if you just read it and focus on it. I need a 30-day due diligence, and closing will take place upon acquisition of financing. I made it clear. I'm going to go get a government loan, and you guys are going to wait till I get the loan, or I ain't buying your property. Because I'm going to get a government loan for enough to buy and rehab the property. Now, why did I make the seller take back a second? I didn't have to, because I could have got a loan. Well, I had to. Here's why I had to. Because I knew I wasn't going to get a 100% loan. And I wasn't counting on the 90% loan. So I put a hedge factor in there. I made sure that the cash I offered the seller was low enough that I wouldn't have any trouble getting the property financed. It's really, how can I lose? What can I do to fix it now? Seller easily agreed that if I come up with $2 million, which he only owed 1.1 on the property, if I come up to $2 million, they'd take back a second. Now, all I got to do is borrow the $2 million, in of which will get the job done. In fact, I intended to borrow $2.2 million. And the seller takes back a $600,000 second. And then I have a little money left over to do a little bit of cleanup work the property needed. Of course, it's subject to court approval because the partners were fighting over the property. Now, after I made this offer and got it orally accepted, partners came in and just started suing each other. So now, broker calls me up one day and says, Ron, I can't get your offer accepted because now they're in court. We need an all-cash offer. I said, now, Mary, if I make an all-cash offer on this thing, and she said, not only do we need an all-cash offer, but we need an all-cash offer that can close within 30 days. I said, Mary, that's going to be ugly. That's going to be an embarrassing offer. She said, well, embarrass me. So I submitted an offer for $1.7 million. By the way, this project's supposedly worth $4 million. I submitted an offer for $1.7 million, all cash, to close in 30 days. And still waiting on them to approve it. Them being the court in this case, because they literally are tied up in court. If they come through, and that offer has been out there for 5 weeks. If that offer comes through, I'll get the property appraised quickly, and we'll close on it in 30 days. But only if what? Only if it's worth $4 million. If it ain't worth $4 million, I ain't paying 1.7 for it, all cash. In fact, I should have bought it cheaper now that I think about it. And I would imagine that my life is going to be unaffected whether I own this apartment complex or whether I don't. And she kept coming back to me and saying, well, we need some kind of proof of funds so I can convince the court to take your offer. I said, Mary, tell the court that if they accept my contract, I'll buy their property, and if they need proof of funds before they even accept my contract, tell them to take me out. I'm not a buyer. Sell it to somebody else. She said, okay, I get the message. Good. Get it accepted or don't. I don't care. Let me see the next one. It's a 100-acre golf course. Oh, this one's kind of cool. They started at $10 million. You can see I offered $7 million. They came back and wanted $7.5 million. I went back at $7 million. They said, well, we'll have to shop. I said, okay. Come see me when you're done. But I can't promise you I can pay you $7 then. Now look at this. Earnest money 25. I was offering them $500,000 down, $500 within 12 months, $500,000, and a balance within 24 months after closing. This is a resort on a golf course. Beautiful property. 60 days due diligence, 90 days to close. And I'll need a release clause allowing parcels to be released as they are paid off early. Now, do you know how important that paragraph right there is? It says the formula for release will be purchase price divided by the total square feet purchased, which is a very good phrase, incidentally. What's that mean, guys? All that means is simple. If I pay $1 a square foot to buy it, I want it released for $1 a square foot as I pay it off. Understand? Whatever I'm paying for it, whatever I agree to pay for it. Look, the seller's taking back a mortgage. You see that? So whatever we agreed to pay for it going the front end, I want you to release it on the back end. That's the simplest release clause there is. And then we don't even have to know what we're going to release and draw lines on maps and agree on parcels and all that crap. Now you can rest assured that the attorneys are going to write that up to be a whole lot more clear than that. And you can also rest assured that the prime parcels of this property are going to be protected with this release clause, so I don't go release the prime parcels and leave all the crap in the back or whatever. And I expect that. But this is the best I can do hey, it worked. They came back at me with a $7.5 million offer, and the terms were acceptable other than that. And I said, no, I ain't going to pay it. Mainly because I just didn't want a golf course in Ohio in the middle of the winter at that point. And I didn't care if they took it or not. And what a great position that is. And if somebody don't come in and swoop down and buy this thing, I'm going to wind up buying this thing for $7 million. If it's worth $15, because if it ain't, I don't want it. I forgot. Oh, I know how I was going to fund it. That's why I said, you see how important that contingency is? Because I was going to split off some of the property and get a loan on it to give them their down payment. You see, if they got to deed me the property as I pay it off, they can deed it to me at closing just as well as they can deed it to me after closing. We don't have to get complicated. In other words, I'm not going to write in here, I'm going to go to borrow the money on your property to buy your property. Nah. If we have a contract that says they'll release property for $1 a square foot, and I happen to come to closing with more money than I promised, or better yet, if I come to closing with $500,000, then they got to release me however many square feet that is. They don't have a choice. Every dollar I pay, and you can rest assured the contract will make that clear. Every dollar I pay, I get a piece of land for. Isn't that fair? You're paying cash for the property. Why wouldn't you get it? What do we got on the next page? Oh, here's a counter. Here's a letter that went with it. I'm sorry. The letter on page 66 went with the letter on page 67. This was an office building in Nashville that I almost bought, and kind of glad I didn't. Good office building, fully rented, good location. Two problems. Problem one, had a balloon due in a few months. Problem two, had a big tenant, half the space moving out within 7 months. Third problem, seller didn't want the property because they weren't even occupying it. They bought it and it was an organization and they didn't want it. So first look at my offer. Well, no, let's look at my letter before my offer. Thanks for the package. I've reviewed it carefully and understand the prepayment penalty and the escrows. Whoever wrote them must have presented a big bill. You should have seen the mortgage these guys signed on this building. It was 65 pages long. The prepayment penalty in it, a Philadelphia lawyer could not understand. Could not understand. It was written in such legalese, I can assure you that when they signed that thing, they had no clue what it said. I've never seen a mortgage that long. I'm interested in the property and understand the issues that come with it, i.e. upcoming vacancy, balloon due soon, and prepayment penalty. I'm not interested in burying cash in this property that will take 1 to 2 years to bring up to the point I can refinance it. Therefore, I've constructed our offer I believe will get the seller what they need and help me achieve my objective. My LOI is attached. My objective is to buy the property, locate a new tenant, to create stability, refinance when applicable, which has to be in the last 6 months of the loan in 2007 because they had a prepayment penalty in there. Till then it was huge. And they knew that. Unless I can negotiate a release of the prepayment penalty sooner. I don't anticipate any problems with a refinance once the cash flow will support the debt. My financial statement is strong and lendable, and I can support the probable upcoming period of negative cash flow when the vacancy occurs. I await your reply. That's a nice letter. Do you understand that I addressed their concerns right in the letter? And I knew fully well, this letter was to the broker. And I knew the broker was just going to have the seller read the letter. And here's the offer. The building is worth $4 million, they say. They were asking $3 million. I offered 2.5. I offered 2.5 by taking over their $2 million debt subject to and give them back a second mortgage for $500,000. I think. Yeah, that's what I offered. Or I told them we could just do an AITD, all-inclusive trust deed, for the 2.5 if that would make them feel better. And I'd make the payments on the first. $10,000 deposit, boom, 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 boom. Well, they came back and they said, we really need $2.5 million for the property. I went back and said, I really don't want to pay $2.5 million for the property. And I don't know what they've done with it since. I'm not going to pay. I'm sorry. They came back and said they wanted $3 million. I came back and said I ain't going a nickel above 2.5, and I'm not. I mean, I wasn't that impressed with that property. It was a good property. Didn't need a thing. Excess land, a little excess land to build on, but it didn't meet my criteria. It wasn't low-hanging fruit to me. Because you see, even if I bought the property, and even if I didn't put any money into it, guess who gets to put money out when this 50,000 square foot tenant moves out? Yeah, me. So I'd had to feed the property for a while, then find another tenant. Then I'd have to go refinance it and pay off that debt. So it didn't come without grief, and the grief just wasn't worth the gain to me. And frankly, to be honest with you, I didn't trust the $4 million valuation.